All right, so David did a great job inking up this plate. And one thing I wanted to point out that I look for is that I want the surface of my plate to have a similar texture and consistency as the roller, because the roller is doing a great job of transferring the ink from one surface to another surface, and that means that will allow us to then transfer this ink from the surface of the plate onto the paper. So I'm gonna take my David's plate and move it over to my registration sheet, which I'm gonna talk about in a second. And I'm gonna put it, we've created two registration sheets to sort of show you the different dimensions. This one is for a horizontal image. It has an even amount of space on each side. So 3 inches on either of the wide side and 2.5 inches on the top and bottom, meaning that this plate is centered within this frame. And I'm going to move over here to a vertical image that we printed earlier. This is the registration sheet, and you can see that we've divided it so that there's 2.5 inches on the top and both of the sides, and 3.5 inches on the bottom. It's pretty common in a print, for prints, to have more weight at the bottom, meaning that the image is higher up in the frame and there's a little bit more paper at the bottom under the image. Some of that helps because we're gonna sign and edition our image down there, and also it's just kind of a custom. It looks really nice. We have grown accustomed to it, so it looks very nice, but it does. So we'll send you all of these dimensions, you'll have them, but just so you can kind of see. And I also want to point out a few mistakes that I'm going to correct in this process. So you can see that when I was printing earlier, haphazardly, I got my fingerprints all over my registration sheet, which then transferred onto my final image. And so what I did this time was take off my gloves, clean my hands, and I hopefully am not going to do that this time. The other mistake I made in this printing is I printed on the back of the paper. So you might remember from the paper tearing video, I put a little X on the back of each paper to remind myself what was the back and what was the front, and I did not pay any attention. And so I printed with smudges all over and on the back of the page. So for this video demo, I'm going to correct all of those mistakes. Practice makes perfect. So I've aligned my plate within the frame, and I just want to kind of give you a reminder, because each plate won't be perfectly even. I want you to remember where you're lining it up. So for example, if I'm going to really focus on lining up the top edge, then for every subsequent plate, I'm going to remember to line it up with the top edge. That way, if for whatever reason it actually is like a little bit longer or like a little bit one way or the other, I'll always know that I'm placing this the way that I want it and that they'll be consistent. It's about consistency. Okay, so this video is about hand printing, because we might be hand printing at home, or you might decide that hand printing is something that you want to do anyway, because it creates a different effect, it gives you a different quality. So I have an array of hand printing tools here that I'm going to show you, and I want you to start thinking about what you might be able to use in your own home. It could be, and actually I forgot to bring that over here, but it could be the back of your lino cut tool. That might make a really great implement for transferring ink to paper. It could be a cup that you don't really use anymore. There's a lot of different things. So I want you to start to think about what you can find around the house. Now, traditionally in the Western method, and this is a traditional tool, a wooden spoon. And that's actually what I'm going to use today to show you. It's got a smooth surface. You can put pressure, you can find specific spots. It works really well, you'll see in a second. Alternatively, a metal spoon. This is a really cheap metal spoon. I actually would worry a little bit if I put too much pressure, I might even snap it, but I printed that last image with it and it works awesome. It's great. It's got that nice smooth surface to kind of move around, which you'll see in a second. This is a traditional Japanese hand printing tool called a baren, B-A-R-E-N. And what it is traditionally, not necessarily this one, this would have been a lacquer disc. And then on the inside here where you can't see, there's a braided rope. You can maybe see a little bit of the texture. There's a braided rope under here, which gives cushion and texture and oomph, I guess I'll just say. And then all of that is wrapped in a bamboo sheath, which is actually the sheddings of the bamboo trunk. And so this is a very traditional tool. It works beautifully for hand printing. It's designed for a very specific process, but it works very well. This is a plastic modern day version of the more traditional version. Somebody, a designer, developed this in conjunction with a Japanese print artist, and they worked together, and this is awesome. It works so well, and it's got this texture to kind of mimic that texture of the rope, and it doesn't, you never have to replace the bamboo, which you do on the other one because it breaks down over time. But again, it's a flat disc. You can start to look around the house. Maybe you have a hockey puck. I don't know if that's a thing around here. And then this is a doorknob. And it's not actually a doorknob, but this is a doorknob that's designed for relief printing. It's to mimic the wooden spoon. I actually find that this, it works fine, but this one, for whatever reason, has a spot, and it often ends up making more of a line. So if I do this, sometimes it's because I want to get some like extra little lines or some different textures. And so you can think about how you can creatively print that contributes to the final image in a different way than having it print flat. Okay, so those are some examples of tools. I'm gonna grab one of my pieces of paper with my clean hands. I'm going to check the back. This one has no X's on it. So I'm gonna feel and try to figure out which is the smooth side. This is the smooth side. And then this registration system is very simple. You place your plate how you want it to go, and then this paper is the exact same size as this paper. So I'm going to line up corner to corner, side to side, and I'm going to gently lower this. And then, because I'm paranoid, I'm going to put my finger on there. So by doing that, it sort of starts the process of sticking the paper to the ink. And all of this whole process, the whole point of printmaking is transfer, right? So what we want to do is transfer this ink to this paper using any means necessary. So I'm just going to go for it. I'm putting some pressure. You might find you need more or less pressure depending on how much ink you have, how strong you are, how heavy the tool that you're using is. So I'm just taking these swirling motions. I started from the middle. You can start from wherever you want. Sometimes, like I just did with my finger, it's good to just kind of smooth out. So if there were any wrinkles or anything, they would be moving out from the center. Because our paper is dry, I don't see us having too much of an issue with that. So I'm just circular motions, making sure I especially get the edges. We want to glide across the surface, not dig into any of our marks. My hands weren't as clean as I thought they were. Okay, so that's that side. Now I'm going to use this spoon on the other side. You can hear it makes a different sound. I think that metal spoon is really my new favorite tool. So I'm going to check because I have no idea what's happening here in terms of how well this transfer is going. So I'm going to hold my paper against the block tightly, and I'm going to carefully peel. This is the big reveal. Peel up my paper and just check. How am I doing? Where do I need more pressure? Where isn't it transferring? And so you can see over here at this one side, I really missed a spot. So again, I'm holding this paper down so that way, as I lower this back, it's gonna line up exactly where it was before. And I can kind of correct those areas. Oops. Depending on your printing tool, you might want to put something in between your tool and the back of the paper. That could be like wax paper, it could be parchment, it could be another sheet of just like copy paper or something. You can also see how if there was a spot of ink stuck, it would cause the paper to tear actually, because I would be rubbing against it and it would create a little bubble and it wouldn't print in that spot and it would also tear. Okay, I'm gonna call this good enough for our first proof, our kind of first test of this plate. And this is the most exciting part. And you can see I corrected that area and some of the other areas. Oops. And so you saw that I didn't just tear it up I didn't just pull up on the paper like this, but I actually kind of slowly lifted one side because the ink and the paper stick to one another. And so you want to kind of relieve that surface tension a little bit at a time. And there you go. And you can remember that it's backwards. Okay, so now we have our two images, our two registration systems, our many printing tools. And the next thing we have to do is clean up.